Let's talk about the main book of Sasha Sokolov, his first novel, A School for Fools. This, of course, is his most famous book. Since Perestroika, when it was first published in the Soviet Union, it has been republished constantly, one might say every month. It is translated into many languages, monographs and dissertations have been written on it. It is extremely capacious, large and complex book, recognized as a modern classic. And the main difficulty with it is that this book absolutely does not lend itself to be retold, in the same way as poetry cannot be retold. This comparison is not accidental. I spoke about Sasha Sokolov's beginning as a poet, and for his specific prose, unlike any other, he himself came up with a special term, proetry. Proetry, that is the combination of poetry and prose. Sokolov writes as if Soviet literature did not exist. Imagine a theoretical experiment. We give this book to someone who does not know the author's name or when and where it was written. Could this person, by internal science, by what is described in this book, determine the time of its writing? It seems to me that it's not very unlikely. A very attentive reader will notice, for example, that in front of the school building in which the hero is studying, two old men made of chalk are standing. These are most probably the busts of statues of Lenin and Stalin. But it must be guessed at. Somewhere a bulk boy is mentioned. It is a typical sculpture of Stalin's times. The protagonist of the book is forced to run cross-country races. It is also a sign of Soviet times. The head of the school introduces a sleeper system, that is, forces the students to wear replaceable shoes at school. That causes hostility and protest. That is probably all in this book that signifies place and time, that is taken from the Soviet era. Everything else can be perceived as a parable, as what can happen everywhere at any time. The parable character of this book can be designated differently. The book lacks a plot, because a plot is closely related to the period, to the time, with the science of the time. Sokolov speaks directly about it in one of his essays. I lost interest only in the plot. A loves B, B loves C, C loves D. What a bore, what a boredom. Indeed, there is no plot in A School for Fools, or more precisely, when we try to retell this text, we would face incredible difficulties or contradictions. On the one hand, it sounds like a monologue of a boy who lives with his parents in their summer house, dacha in Russian, by the Moscow, and on the other hand, in the other episodes, it suddenly turns out that the boy had grown up a long time ago, become an adult, and his summer house is sold long ago. And the hero directly says that he has serious problems with time, that he cannot sense the time. He says something like this: I live, or I have lived, or I will live. I swim along the river, or I swam, or I will swim. He seems to feel all the time with himself, existing simultaneously in the past, in the present, and in the future. This rejection of the plot, of the linear current of time, is only one of the rejections, only one of the refusals which we see in Sokolov's novel. In fact, as well as in the biography of the author, this novel consists of continual refusals and renouncements. It consists of desire of freedom, or more precisely, of freedom from something. What does the hero refuse? He refuses his name, first of all. We do not know in this novel what the name of the hero is. Moreover, even in Kafka's novels, the hero is called by one letter. There is no such letter here. In one episode, he identifies himself with the water lily, or Nymphea alba in Latin. Sometimes the hero is called Nymphaea. He announces his identity. The novel is written from the point of view of some boy who is suffering from multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia. He conducts an internal dialogue and the reader cannot always understand who is in front of him. At least in the beginning, before you understand who is speaking, the reader needs to undertake some mental efforts to understand. The hero renounces the family ties. I quote, "When our mother shouted after you come back, you did not do it even though you felt bad for her, for our patient mother." In this sense, he is leaving his parents' house on a bicycle, and it seems to him that this departure takes his entire life. He renounces neighbors, friends, and acquaintances. Another quote, "It will be better to leave them, to go away on the first electric train. I don't want to hear their voices." He renounces the social roles inherent in people. One of the protagonists, the teacher, the geography teacher, Pavel, preaches, quote, you will forget your false books and newspapers, you'll get nauseated hearing your own voices, last names and titles. You'll unlearn how to read and write, and you'll want to prattle like aspen leaves in August. Such constant renunciation is one of Sasha Sokolov's main principles. The desire for complete freedom, the denial of all these roles, all that connect the person with society. Another principle can be called that of metamorphosis, the transformation of things of one thing into another. Let's take one of the quotes from the very beginning of the novel. Here he describes the summer house, this dacha, summer house, and the locality, the area where the action takes place. I quote, "This is the 5th zone. The ticket costs 35 kopecks. The train ride takes an hour and 20 minutes. The northern branch, a branch of acacia, or let's say lilac, it blooms with white flowers, smells of creosote, of dust from the carriage platform, of tobacco smoke, appears faintly along the right of way, in the evening returns on tiptoe to the orchard, and listens attentively to the movement of electric trains, shudders from rustling sounds, then the flowers close and sleep, giving in to the demands on solicitous bird called rossignol. The branch is asleep, but the trains play symmetrically along its course, resembling the links in a chain, rush feverishly in the darkness." As is in Nikolai Gogol's digressions, and Sokolov said, "I've been rereading Nikolai Gogol all my life," we have completely different images in the beginning of the digression and at the end. We do not remember at all. At the end, we don't remember how this digression began. It is the metamorphosis. The railway branch next to which the hero's house is located turns first into an acacia branch, then into a lilac branch, then into a nightingale bird. A nightingale bird most probably is sitting on this branch. And then everything returns. The trains nevertheless run along this sophisticatedly shaped complex. But the branch is also a heroine, because the woman with whom the boy is in love is called Veta or Vetka, which sounds exactly in Russian like branch. And she turns into this very acacia branch, and then into a lilac branch, and then into a girl who walks her dog next to the lake. Her father, academician Akatov, turns to Leonardo da Vinci, who gives lessons to the hero, instructs him, for example, how to observe flying on 4 wings. Quote, "If you want to see flying on 4 wings, go to the moats of the Milan fortress and you will see black dragonflies. And right from his summer house, the hero finds himself right in the 16th century, in the moats of Milan fortress, where Leonardo, wearing a wrinkled old khiton, stands by his portable easel with a drawing pen in one hand and a bottle of red India ink on the other, and puts some designs on a sheet of Watman paper. Copies shoots of the sedge that grows over the entire muddy bottom of the moat. But the same hero at once turns out to be a geography teacher, Pavel, or Paul in English, who delivers passionate, inspirational speeches from above, because he is not only Pavel or Paul, he is the Apostle Paul, Pavel in Russian, the biblical soul who persecuted Christ and then turned to his disciple and prophet. The head teacher at the school, named Trachtenberg, is also hero's neighbor, an old woman, and the witch from a fairy tale. The postman who delivers letters on his bike across the village has two surnames at the same time, and this is not just a postman. This is a mythological character who arises in the mind of hero, the sender of the wind. And at the end, he would destroy the entire village and all people who live there. Thus, the complex, forked, schizophrenic consciousness of the hero leaves us unable to say that something is happening in the novel, or more precisely, leaves us as unable to distinguish reality from fantasy. This is the main feature of the novel A School for Fools, which brings it close both to Gogol, Nikolai Gogol, and to the postmodernism. Any event here suffers in its cause denial. Everything is passed through the prism of the central hero's consciousness. And we cannot say where it is his imagination and where there is some pieces of reality. And moreover, we cannot be sure that it is really a hero before us and not the author, although somewhere in the middle of the book appears another character who calls himself a book's author. The novel has an open ending and an open structure in general. It does not end anywhere. Developed on the basis of the associative principle, it seems to be cut short. That is, the reader expects that these associations could have continued further. The hero and the author, holding hands, go outside in order to buy more paper, because the author ran out of it. He cannot write further, cannot continue to his text. And so the novel has not a happy ending, but it is the demonstration of absolute openness to the world, to the life. All the features that I have listed, they can partly be found in the French new novel, Roman Nouveau, in the 1960s, for example, in Alain Raubgrier. But it is almost impossible to find them in Russian literature, except the late Nabokov, whom Sokolov, according to his testimony, did not read. This was completely new in our literature. It was a breakthrough into the 21st century. It was a text that, like Venedikt Erofeev's poem, combined Russian modernism with its future.